I need to show you some incredible footage that we've created here at NDTV to depict for you what I am calling the most important military operation, perhaps of our lifetime, viewer. And I want you to look at these images of what Ukraine has basically made possible. Trucks packed with Ukrainian drones, just $1,200 each, 117 of them inside harmless-looking cargo trucks smuggled into Russia. Russia completely clueless. Those trucks driven by clueless drivers, driven like any normal harmless cargo towards sensitive vital installations in Russia, 4,000 kilometers away from Ukraine. Those drones are remotely deployed, activated. They take off from those trucks and they leave to wreak absolute hell and damage on Russian air bases. Last told, at least 40 Russian nuclear-capable bomber aircraft have been destroyed or completely damaged in this strike, which lasted just a few hours, up to 4,000 kilometers away. And then whatever remained of those trucks simply self-destructed in order to completely destroy any evidence. Ukraine has taken full responsibility for what happened. They've held elaborate press conferences to reveal exactly what took place. They've taken ownership of it. And this AI video that's been created by the extremely talented team here at NDTV shows you precisely how this actually happened. But the next big question tonight is, what is Russia's anger going to translate into? Russia has called this their Pearl Harbor. They've called this a strike that will be accounted for. So what does this actually mean? What could happen next? Let's see. Number one, the options. What could happen next? An extreme conventional Russian retaliation. This is already happening. Russia, remember, has destroyed large parts of Ukraine. It's sitting on large parts of Ukraine right now. But this could see a particularly extreme conventional Russian retaliation. And when I say conventional, of course, I mean a non-nuclear escalation. Number two, an escalated asymmetric cyber attack. This is a sphere that's little spoken about, but something that Russia takes very seriously. Ukraine has attempted to do this inside Russia as well. Could we see a large country-scale asymmetric or cyber attack to cripple infrastructure within Ukraine, courtesy Russia? Number three, elevated nuclear saber rattling. That's already happening. Training missile launches are likely to take place, even something that is close to NATO borders. Number four, a big, spectacular, high-value attack. Point number one was about a conventional escalation, but if there is one big, high-value establishment, installation, piece of infrastructure, or a military site that can be attacked, that could be on the table as far as the Russian retaliation is concerned. Obviously, there's already aggressive diplomatic posturing. Russia could pile on the pressure now about any direct talks regarding a ceasefire, whether it is in Istanbul or elsewhere. And finally, like I said, training nuclear missile launches near NATO borders in order to convey the message that Russia sees this not just as a Ukraine-only issue, but something that has been triggered by NATO support. So, okay, I'm joined now to get a sense of what the next big retaliation is likely to be. We have Major General R.C. Paddy. He's a Senior Vice President R&D with IG Drones, which is a big drone startup here in India, a company that has also had drones participate in the Operation Sindoor. We have Olena Trigub, former Director, Ministry of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, and I'll be going to her first in just a moment. We have Ray Locker, who's an author and a senior journalist, joining us live from Washington. Ray, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. And finally, we also have Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov. He's a BCMC Founders Director of Communication. He'll be joining us in just a moment. I'd like to go to our guest from Ukraine first. Ma'am, the strikes we've seen by Ukraine deep inside Russia are the talk of every think tank, every government really across the globe right now. But the obvious question is, what's going to come next from the Russian side? We've already seen what Russia has done in many Ukrainian cities. How are you seeing this? How do you think Russia is going to respond?
Well, frankly speaking, in Ukraine, nobody is really worried about how Russia is going to respond, because what Russia does to Ukraine does not really depend on whether we destroy their strategic bombers or not. Russia did horrible things. Russia killed our children on playgrounds multiple times with ballistic missiles. So, what kind of escalation is possible? For Ukrainians, there is no escalation possible, but we in Ukraine, we feel that our country demonstrated that we opened up a new era in modern warfare. All countries in the world now are learning from us. Even the United States said that they will introduce drones in every military unit by 2026. We used just several $100,000 to destroy 1/3 of strategic bombers they have, when one plane costs more than $100 million. So this is big success. In Ukraine, we celebrate this success. It happens symbolically on June 1, when we traditionally celebrate the Day of Children. And this is very good that now Russia has less planes to send missiles to kill our children. That's as simple as that.
Okay, Olega, stay with me. Ray, if I could draw you in on this, the president of Ukraine says this was an entirely Ukrainian operation. The suggestion there seems to be that there was no outside help. Do you think that is the case? And if it wasn't, how do you see what Russia's response could be?
Well, I doubt Russia is going to respond outside the Ukrainian borders and go anywhere else in Europe. As your previous guest said, I mean, what else can Ukraine expect? I mean, Russia's been doing all sorts of heinous acts for the last 3.5 years toward Ukraine, so I don't know what else they could do. I wonder about this. Is this kind of like a battle of the bulge scenario, where in the last gasp of World War II, the Germans made a dramatic strike? Or does Ukraine have more resources up its sleeve to do further actions?
Okay, let's get a view from Moscow now. Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, I hope he can hear me. Dr. Sergei, how is Russia going to respond, given that the Russian side has called this Pearl Harbor, which has very ominous connotations? We've already seen what's happening inside of Ukraine. This action by Ukraine has been described as a terrorist act as well. Could you give us your perspective on how you think or how you see Russia will respond to this?
Namaste, namaskar. First of all, I want to tell that is a proxy war, and you cannot win in the war without lost. Of course, lost always painful, but for our nation, nothing special. It's what happened yesterday, actually. It's only increase our spirit to win, because we fight for justice. We fight for the harbour. And our national leader, Vladimir Putin, he is a very much the harbour-oriented leader, because he is believer, he is Orthodox believer, and he believes to God. And we are support our civilization, because our country is not only country, we're a very ancient civilization, same like India. And we have, by the way, similarity between India and Russia. And during the hard time of Indian history, Russia always support India. During the conflict with Pakistan, as you know. And right now is the time where India can support Russia, Russian civilization, our spirituality, our tradition values. That's why this is a proxy war. It was terroristic attack, because right now Ukraine is very weak in battlefield, very weak. And what they can do, they can find any tricky way to make some terrorist attack. And there's nothing special. It's just only
Dr.
1
Sergei,
point.
this was not a small attack. This was 4,000 kilometers inside of Russia. An operation that took a year and a half to plan. It's not small. It's big.
Of course, it's not small attack, because this conflict between Russia and Ukraine was very well organized during last 20 years. How many? 20 years. And they planned this attack during 1.5 years. Mr. Zelensky already mentioned in his speech. Of course, it's not small things, but it's not at the end of the war. It's they did it especially before the peacemaking dialogue, because they know that our position to support moral value and support our rights of Russian-speaking population within Ukraine is
Russia
very
has
important.
called this their Pearl Harbor. How do you interpret that from Ukraine's side? What do you think that means for the rest of the world? That that's an ominous warning.
Well, Pearl Harbor was the beginning of the Japanese attack, the beginning on sudden attack on US during the war. Whereas for us, it's not. We are at war with Russia since 2014. The targets that we hit are legitimate military targets. We did not kill any children. We didn't kill any women, any civilians. These were surgically clean operation to destroy Russian bombers. And what Russians do, this is horrific. I don't know what values. Is it good human value to kill children at playground? Since when it is a value?
Okay. Ray, do you want to weigh in on where the United States stands in all of this? Do you think that's going to have some kind of influence in what plays out now between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, unfortunately, I think the Trump administration is powerless to do really anything, as we've seen over the last 5 months, as they flail around one day after another trying to figure out the right kind of response. I mean, you have President Trump tweeting or putting out on Truth Social, pleas for Vladimir Putin to stop, or that he's crazy. I mean, if I'm on any side of this war, I'm not really taking the United States into consideration that much. I don't think Putin is. I think Zelensky knows that Ukraine has to go it alone or with help from Europe, and anything they get from the United States is a bonus.
Interesting. And I also want to bring in Major General R.C. Paddy. He's a senior officer with one of India's startup companies that creates attack drones of the kind that have actually seen military operations. And I brought him in because he's not only an army veteran, but also someone involved in these technologies. General Paddy, you're welcome. You've just heard voices from Ukraine, Russia, and the United States on this outsized story. But it's important to also remember that it all began with the kinds of drones that companies like yours actually manufacture. So I was interested in your perspective, where we're talking about a big war-like situation that's been triggered by 117 drones.
Thank you, Steve. And in fact, it was a very brilliant asymmetric attack on the very critical strategic air and naval assets of the Russian, that too a depth of more than 4,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
The similar kind of thing happened in 1941, where Russia lost about 15% of their assets. So today also they lost about 15% of their strategic assets. And now what has happened is, by this, they have lost one credibility of facing the NATO or challenging the NATO as a credible opponent, because now their delivery systems, particularly the nuclear delivery systems, have been crippled to a great extent. Now to overcome that, it will take quite a bit of time. And secondly, there is a loss. They have also lost one AWCS in which they have lost the capability to strike very deep. Now, this has really adversely affected the Russian capability, and whatever the operation your Ginger was, Spider was brilliantly executed by the Ukraine forces.
I know,
so no doubt in that.
Not only from a technological perspective, but also from a warfare doctrinal perspective. We have been in the era of drone warfare for a few years now. We've seen what's happened between Ukraine and Russia. We've seen Azerbaijan and Armenia. Most recently this month, we've seen even India versus Pakistan, where drone warfare was actually used. But to see it result in this kind of strategic effect.
Now the issue is, Ukraine has been manufacturing FPV type of drones in millions for last since the beginning of the war. They enhanced their manufacturing capability of FPV drones. So Russia should have been aware about that. And in India, we don't have that much of capability of manufacturing FPV drones. But we used FPV drones, particularly my company, we used our FPV drones during the Operation Sindoor, and we were quite successful in that.
Yeah.
So the lesson learned is that because we learned this lesson from the same Russia-Ukraine warfare only. So we knew that the FPV drones are very effective. It's a small drone, hardly it costs about $1,000. And it can damage you. We have seen what kind of damage
incredible.
it can do.
That's precisely why I called you on the show as well, because it is this kind of very zoomed in tactical, technology that has created this larger than life effect, where the entire world has been drawn in to guess at what the effect and what the response from Russia is actually going to look like. Olena, if I could bring you back in now. The expectation right now is going to be of some kind of a big Russian response beyond what has already taken place. Do you think that's a given?
No, I don't think so, because like I said,
especially since there was there was a diplomatic effort in Istanbul, etc. in that perspective.
Well, the effort in Istanbul, it was basically imitation of negotiation. There was not a real effort. The maximum effect of that effort was exchange of prisoners of war. Putin did not have any intention to stop the war, because Putin wants to advance in summer to grab more Ukraine, and then maybe in autumn he will have the real negotiation. But now it will be just harder for Putin to bomb our cities, and also, of course, right now there will be effect on Russia that they will have paranoia, where they will start checking trucks, they will interrupt the logistics inside Russia, and they will need to punish Russian generals who are responsible for the lack of any security. You know that at those airfields with Russian strategic fighter jets, they didn't even have any electronic warfare protections. They didn't have anything because they thought that they are not reachable. But that's a mistake, and Russia will now have to figure out inside. Putin will want to do something now to strengthen his power, because for him right now, he's definitely in crisis, because he needs to show that he is strong. First of all, to people inside Russia, to his own circle. That's, I think, will be his logic.
Dr. Sergey, would you want to respond to that? From the perspective of the peace talks, the Ukraine side says, there was never any real commitment.
First of all,
so this attack
again
has nothing to do with that.
To all the colleagues or journalists, that our national leader, Vladimir Putin, he did a very profound and deep interview to the famous American journalist Tucker Carlson, where he, during 2 hours, explained all the historical condition of this deep conflict. This is not conflict between Russia and Ukraine, frankly speaking. This is a conflict between Russian civilization and collective West. And collective West, they guide Ukraine politicians, they consult him, they increase their ability because of their financial support, intellectual support, and ideology, of course, first of all. But again, to where nation very experienced in the military and in the war. During all our history, you can see that a lot of expansion from different western direction, eastern direction come to Russia, and all of them was completely failed. All of them not success. That's why we are nation of victory. We are nation of brave mood, and we support all small nations around all the world. That's why nothing changed, and our position in diplomacy, again, same position, to support peace, but with right condition, with justice.
I will say one thing as I close this discussion. and that is that Russia did acknowledge the losses that took place immediately after they actually took place, and I'm sure there may be some learnings there, especially for us here in India, and certainly for other countries as well. Thank you very much to Olena and to all the gentlemen joining me on this discussion number 1 here on Left, Right and Centre.